Class is in session, your most unconventional class. She talks all things, all subjects. It's the Interdisciplinary Podcast. Hosted by your favorite doctor, this is What's the Say with Dr. Kymrae.
Welcome to the show. I Spy. Do y'all remember that game, I Spy? I spy my controversial, my free thinkers. If these are you, then, well, and if it's not you, I still encourage you to stay with us because we are talking about topics that are very controversial, but yet they are so meaningful and so necessary to talk about today. And so I encourage you to stick with us. This is episode 10, and we're calling this one The Tipping Point of mass incarceration, equity, and COVID. You know, we're going to be talking about all three of those things and how they encompass really the underlying subject of systemic racism and mass incarceration. And so how many of you have seen that movie 13th? I mean, if you have, I want you to comment below, yes, 13. Comment below, yes, 13, if you've seen that movie. This movie right here, though, it was the beginning for me of my understanding. It opened my eyes to this major big problem that we have in this nation and this world, but specifically here in the United States. This movie was named 13th because of the 13th Amendment. And so I want to read to you real quickly before I bring on our amazing guest, the 13th Amendment. And so the 13th Amendment is neither slavery nor involuntary servitude, except as a punishment for crime whereof the party shall have been duly convicted, shall exist within the United States or any place subject to their jurisdiction. This, to me, this movie was so eye-opening to me because it was the beginning of my understanding of the decades, not just a couple of years. We're talking decades and decades and generations of strides to basically decimate Black and brown people in the United States. And it also was the acceleration of mass incarceration. And so I think in the wake of George Floyd and the Ahmaud Arbery stories specifically, you know, we as a nation are finally having these conversations that we've been turning our blind eye to for so many years. And so I think it's so incredible that I have this amazing guest with us for episode 10. And we'll get to her bio as soon as I bring her on. And I'm going to bring her on in just a minute. And I'm so excited to do so. Before we do that, if you like what we're doing and you really enjoy it and you want to support us, click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for your weekly updates. We do these every Wednesday, drop every single Wednesday. So be ready. If you hit that notification bell, you'll get that notification that we've got a new episode out there. So I'm ready to bring her on because I can't take this any longer. We've been waiting for her. For weeks, I've been trying to get with her. And so now she is here. She is Howard undergrad and MS of Divinity from Howard. And then she got her PhD at Duke University. Right? She is a prison abolitionist, okay, and ordained Baptist minister. She is Reverend Dr. Madeline McClenney, and we're ready to bring her on. Ladies and gentlemen, episode 10 guest, Reverend Dr. Madeline McClenney. Welcome to What's the Say with Dr. Kymrae, Doc.
Thank you, Dr. Kymrae. It's great to be with you.
Yes, I am so happy to have you. You know, with this climate that I was just telling my subscribers about, that we're in right now, I bet you are super busy. How's everything going over there? You're probably really busy over there at Exodus.
So, you know, our focus is right now on how to get people out of the state prisons and federal prisons. So yes, we are very busy. We're doing some work behind the scenes. I'll come back and share with you later.
Oh, absolutely. And we'll get to all of that because I know we're going to be talking about a lot of the work that you do as we go through this whole episode is all about the work you do. It's just incredible. But, you know, so I want to go back into your bio now that I have you on and we can talk a little bit more about your bio more in detail. You know, I mentioned to them that you have your Bachelor's of Arts in Business Administration and Finance and also a Master's of Divinity, both of those degrees from Howard University in Washington, D.C. And then HU, yeah. My dad is a Bison too. He was a head drum major freshman, and he's 5'8". So that was pretty big for HBCU to be so short and head drum major. But he went to Howard. Yep. So we love me some Howard. But back to who we got here. My guest here, Dr. Madeline. She also got her PhD. Y'all got to hear this. This is big. She got her PhD in Hebrew, Bible, and Old Testament studies. That's not it, y'all. Like as if the PhD wasn't enough. Okay. She also got minors in women's studies and Islamic law. And this was both from Duke University in Raleigh, North Carolina. And so past her degrees, she started training in the restorative practices area. And so when I was learning about who she was, this is long before I became an admirer of her. Now I know who she is, and I know how amazing and incredible she is as a woman. But when I was learning about her, I was wondering what is restorative practices? And I'm going, restorative? Is that like the human body? Or so I want to ask her to share with us today, my subscribers, real quickly, what exactly is restorative practices? I know I read that it's like super understudied, and we need to learn more about it. But so that means a lot of us probably don't know what it is. So can you share with us, Dr. Madeline, what exactly restorative practices is?
Sure, because all of your audience should start to get familiar with this term and use it and ask city, local, national elected officials to be talking about this. So restorative practices is a social science that studies how to repair harm.
Okay.
Right? That's the basic definition. And I would add without using prisons. Right? So how do we repair harm between individuals where one person has injured another person without throwing someone in a cage? And then using restorative practices, our aim is to reduce crime, violence, bullying, improve human behavior, strengthen civil society, restore relationships.
Yes. Okay. That's very interesting. It's a different way to look at it, you know. I'm just excited about this. So we're going to continue and talk more about how that all ties into this discussion today. And so
so imagine this, Dr. Kymrae.
Yes, please.
If you had a 13-year-old, right, that was caught with weed.
Okay.
That you caught with weed.
Yes.
Would you throw him in your basement for 5 or 10 years, deny him access to family, and discontinue his education because you caught him with a bag of weed?
Yeah, that's absolutely
see that's essentially what we have been doing as it relates to mass incarceration. So restorative practice is what mom and dads do all the time. Okay. You sit down, you talk with your son or daughter, you discuss the harm that was done.
Yes.
And you come up with some kind of lesson.
Yes.
Right? We're talking about in a healthy family where you don't like slap the what out of them. But you come up with some kind of lesson that repairs your trust and whatever harm they did.
Wow. Yeah, it's definitely a great way. It's a healthier way to look at it. I got my master's in adult education, and I learned through that program, as well as my PhD in organizational leadership studies, that the human goes through several stages. But I focused on the adult. So when we're talking about an 18-year-old and up, as society labels you an adult at 18 here, people go through a lot of changes, and there's a lot of stuff that happens. It's very similar. I can almost relate, you know, from my experience, not being so much in the criminal justice and reform stuff that I mean, I don't really work in that. But I can relate from my professional side of developing adults. And, you know, you can't treat them like animals. You can't treat them like, you have to treat them like human beings and make them feel like they're valuable to society too. And
right. So we all say that life is a classroom.
Yeah.
How do you learn the lessons if you're constantly being punished? Right? You know, we're not talking about the most heinous crimes right now. That's a whole other discussion.
Correct. That's absolutely.
But for the vast majority of offenses, we can't even learn the lesson because we're focusing on punishment. So restorative practices
I love it.
circumvents all that.
Awesome. Awesome work. And through this, you have now founded, well, not now, it's been since 1999, you founded the ExodusFoundation.org. And so tell us about Exodus Foundation, because I know that Exodus Foundation was a part of this Exodus Coalition plan, too, that was during the Obama term. And it resulted in the clemency that he pardoned several people from their sentences. And you had up to 80K nonviolent.
No. Let me not take credit for what I didn't do.
Clear me up. Fix me up.
Then I'd be like, but that woman said she did this. No. So it is a 33-page plan, Dr. Kymrae, on how the Obama administration and any administration afterwards could release tens of thousands of people from federal prison.
Okay.
And so we submitted that plan. We went up, took Freedom Riders up to DC. Mm-hmm. You know, we filled out a commutation application for everyone in prison, because we knew a whole lot of people wouldn't even know about the clemency process. Right. So where it said first name and last name, we put all nonviolent overcharged prisoners. Yeah. And so yes, but what Exodus does, our mission is to stop the flow on a local level, stop the flow of African Americans to prison. Okay. And on a national level, to stop the flow of all Americans and immigrants to prison. Okay. And we do that through customized reentry, 24-hour reentry mentoring. Yes.
And so that's like you have courses that are done on a weekly basis, or they're in some type of program.
So we train the mentors, and the the mentors are learning about what mass incarceration does to a person, what the needs of that person are likely to be when they exit prison or jail. Okay. And then after that mentor has been trained, we match them with someone who has come to us and requested support.
Got it. Okay. Oh, I would like to hear more about how you match them later. That's interesting. Very cool. Okay, so we're going to continue, guys. Stick with us. I want to get into a little bit more pervasive conversation now, right? Because we've learned a little bit about her background and how she's so pertinent in this conversation. So we're talking about Miss Prison Abolitionist here, right? And I can't even say Miss because she's a doctor. So
you say Miss. You say hey you, because that's what most people say when they hear prison abolition. They don't really comprehend the transformative power of it if we all embrace it.
Yeah. And, and I think it was frowned upon, that label and that term.
It still is in many places.
In many places. Absolutely. Yes. But I think we're in a new day today, and people are actually listening a little bit and actually getting involved in the conversation when they were a little too fearful to do it before. So I have to say, I'm excited about that. I don't know where it's taking us, but that's at least some change and some excitement that we can see maybe a little bit of a light coming down that hallway. But I think because you are a prison abolitionist, Doc, I want to talk about how there are over 2 million people locked up in prison and jails across the United States right now, approximately. And that is the highest incarceration rate in the world. Right? And the U.S. constitutes approximately 5% of the world's population, yet it houses 25% of the world's prisoners. And so basically, Black and brown people are disproportionately imprisoned in the U.S. prison system. So now I think the world sees it from two lenses, right? And that's what we were kind of just saying. We were saying that, you focus on the rehabilitation side of things, the rehabilitation programs, and the undoing that society has continued to maintain the oppression, right, of the masses of people through punishment, violence, and control, right? And so, but like we were saying, these other people are thinking you're saving the wrong people and this is not right. And so let's talk a little bit about being a prison abolitionist and what that means to society and to you. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So two of the basic tenets of prison abolition is economic and social justice for all, and reconciliation in the community instead of punishment. Okay. Mm-hmm. Those are two of the basic tenets of abolition. And one of the other tenets is, first and foremost, is that prisons are reprehensible. Okay. That prisons cannot be reformed. prison should not be a part of human society. And so, like you said, a lot of people were like, the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth, and I know you've heard it, Doc, is, well, what about the rapists and the incest and the murderers? Yes. Okay, let's put, just for a second, we're going to have an answer for that.
Yes.
But let's just for a moment, right?
Yes.
Put that 3% to the side.
Okay.
Because there's 97% of the people we locked up don't fall in that category.
Say that percent is 97.
97% of the people we lock up do not fit in that category.
Wow.
Not only that, a lot of people who have killed, those cases have never been solved. Yeah. And they're out running churches, stores, teaching in the school systems, and I've met people like this myself, right?
Right.
So this idea that all the offenders are being caught and put in prison is a mistake anyway.
Right.
And then when you look at our history, right, consider that the people that founded and who ran this country,
yes,
were raping their slaves on the weekend.
That's right.
Killing the enslaved.
Yes.
This country was run by the very people we say should be locked up forever for a long, So let me give an example of just of what one prison abolitionist said. This is Bruce Wright, and I'll tell you who he is in just a minute.
Sure.
And this is a quote.
Okay.
For years, I have condemned the prisons of America. I have always said that the prison system as it exists in America today should be abolished. As I have grown older, I have seen no reason to change that view.
Okay.
That is Justice Bruce Wright. That is a judge in 1975.
Wow. Yeah.
In 1975, when the prison population was maybe 300,000.
Yeah, it hadn't
before it had a 500% increase.
Right. Nixon, that was just before the war on drugs, probably, or right in that.
Right at that time. Yeah.
Yeah, wow.
So this is not new, is my point. This is not a new idea.
Yeah. And so what does that look like? What does prison abolition look like? Are you with the defund the police and what does that look like to us?
Prison abolition looks like someone commits an offense, and instead of arresting and booking them, they are required to show up at what we call in restorative practices a circle.
Okay.
And in that circle, the person who committed the harm comes with people who will support him or her.
Okay.
And the person who was harmed comes with people who will support him or her.
Yes.
And the facilitator begins a discussion between the person harmed and the person who did the harm.
Okay.
And at the end of the discussion, the facilitator has been trained to help them come to an agreement on how to repair the harm. And it's a written agreement, and most of the time it is very, very effective. You saw examples of that in that brief series that Van Jones did on redemption. I don't know if you ever saw one of his episodes.
I did.
But when you see people sitting around talking with a facilitator, that's called a circle.
Yes.
And that is part of restorative practices.
Okay.
Yeah. And so
it's almost like a focus group.
You could say that, but there's a lot of work that goes into bringing those people together.
Sure.
So a focus group is giving you feedback on a subject matter, typically.
That they're experts
in. But the people that prepare a circle are talking to the victim and the person who did the harm.
Sure.
And separately. Before anyone ever comes together.
Right. Okay.
So that's the heart of restorative. So I was trained, actually, thanks to the Lilly Endowment, by the International Institute of Restorative Practices last year to conduct circles.
Okay.
And
awesome. So that's something that
we haven't incorporated it yet, but we need to.
Yeah. Well, good stuff. Good stuff over there. So so let's transition then into the imperative, right? I think we don't care enough about people that are incarcerated. We don't care enough about them. We don't care about the experience that they experience. We don't care enough about the family members of those that have to go to these prisons and visit these individuals at the prisons and are almost treated like their prisons just when they go to visit their loved one. So I think, we as people need to kind of think about humanity a little bit more from a broader scope than what we've been looking into right now. And change is possible, I think, if we believe that. If we believe and we start waking up and stop turning our blind eye to these situations. And so I want to talk about the reentry process, reentry needs. And I know, Doc, that you were a sentencing specialist, which I learned from you that is when you basically went to a hearing on a court and you would plead for the sentence of the defendant. Yes, you would try to lower their sentence, right? Or
our goal was to make sure they didn't go to prison. So, well, as much as we could to influence the discussion, the narrative around what happened in a way that the judge would decide for a community alternative as opposed to the cage.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Good. That's good. And can you share some stories about how others can get involved, or what are the key components of the reentry process? And how others can get involved in this? How can they do this work if they feel like they want to get involved and help?
Oh, there's so many ways to help. If through our organization or other organizations here in Mecklenburg or around the country. Well, let me say something about coming home.
Sure.
Let's say the impact of starting over again is magnified by how long someone stayed in jail or prison.
Okay, yes.
So the longer they were institutionalized, the more care they will need when they come home.
Okay.
Typically. And also depends on what happened to them while they were inside. Right?
Okay.
Because something traumatic can happen, if you stay there only a month versus 10 years. Here in my own town, minors were being held in solitary confinement in the local jail. And so they were having PTSD and all sorts of symptoms. So when they come home, the family needs support. The person coming home needs support.
Yes. All
of the things that we should be doing anyway as a society to care for one another.
Yeah.
This forces us to be better better caretakers of our neighbors.
Yeah.
So people should not be, suffering with food shortages throughout the month because someone came home from prison and now they have an extra mouth to feed, and that busts the family's budget.
Mm-hmm.
And we have reduced the safety net so much so now that even if you get food stamps, it's not enough to live on yourself. So that means for organizations like ours, in addition to providing mentoring, we're constantly having to either go into our budget or ask churches for support to feed people.
Yeah.
So you can be a person who helps provide food.
Yeah.
You can be a person who helps people get to their doctor's appointments, to their probation appointments, to get bus tickets.
Yes.
Right. And it's until you have a certain amount of experience under your belt, it is best to work with an organization that can train you and prepare you for that.
That's awesome. And I think that leads us into talking about how these things will help. In essence, that buzzword is recidivism and the rate of return for these. I don't want to call them
formerly incarcerated people.
Formerly incarcerated people. Yes.
No ex-offenders. Everyone listening to your show,
don't use that.
Please do not call anyone an offender or ex-offender. If they, of course, if they want to call themselves that's their prerogative.
Yes. But okay, so no
returning citizens or formerly incarcerated person.
Okay, yeah. And I know California is dealing with the highest recidivism rate right now. That's across the nation. I read that. So I don't know what they've got going on over there, but California is always like a little bit more progressive than the rest of us in the States.
They likely were releasing quite a few people, and they probably didn't have the services in place.
Okay.
To help people acclimate to society again.
Okay.
That's
why it's so important. What you do, the work you do is so important, and I think if people just kind of could see it from that lens, instead of thinking, oh, they're all bad, they're just bad, they're all bad. No, you need to wake up and open your eyes to seeing the data, the reasons why these individuals are in prison. What is the data? What is it saying? It's like you said, up in the high 90s percentage rate of individuals that are nonviolent, and they're locked up for years, depending on where they are and what judge got them, and their skin color even.
96% of convictions are attained through plea bargaining, not a jury trial.
Yes.
And so when people, the funny thing about it is in the 80s and 90s, people used to joke about how everyone in prison says they didn't do it. Now that we understand how the plea bargaining process works, there's a fairly good chance a lot of the men and women that were saying that really did not do that, whatever was laid upon them.
Right.
So we
overburden
people with charges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And stack charges against them to give them a lot of time. That is shifting among some prosecutors who recognize the need to change. But you're right. The recidivism rate where I am is around 40%. It's gone down.
Okay.
The numbers have gone down, but that is still extremely high.
That is high. That's almost half of the population.
Right. Exactly.
Yes, absolutely. So just to remind you guys, we are talking the tipping point, mass incarceration, equity, and COVID with Reverend Dr. Madeline McClenney, founder and president of the Exodus Foundation. She's a prison abolitionist and also an ordained Baptist minister. So she is the truth. We are talking a lot of important stuff right here now, but I want to go into how, we've all been talking about how our kids have been homeschooled and our parents are now teachers as well as parents. And, we've got tough discussions going on every day. I've got the governor here in Florida. I'm talking about what he wants to do about these public school systems and they're going back to school, and should they go, should they not? And we're here fall now. I'm not sure if everyone's gone back to school up your way, but here we have not gone back to school yet.
No, we haven't.
Okay. So with that, I find it very the irony in the ability for us to go back to school as kids, but as adults who are the faculty members and the administrators who are at higher risk, because they're saying that these kids are not at risk for COVID-19, when we've seen that has been shown to be a fallacy and kids have gotten it. But even if we just say, okay, the majority of kids won't get it and adults are the only ones that can mostly get it, what about the employees that go to these schools where these kids are going to school? Okay, so we're talking about how it's okay for us to go back to school and for us to be teachers and administrators. It's safe enough for us to do that. But now we're talking about inmates and how inmates are being released from prison because prisons aren't safe enough due to COVID-19. Whereas we got like 120,000 federal inmates in the Bureau of Prisons.
Right.
And I think we completed somewhere between like 40K tests, COVID-19 tests, and 11K or so positive tests. They're okay with releasing these inmates who, when society, right, we're talking about all these people that are concerned and worried or don't understand why you could want to even be a prison abolitionist for these bad people, right? These so-called bad people, but now we're going to release these so-called bad people due to the COVID-19 virus. And some people have died, if I'm not mistaken, from, I believe about 100 federal inmates have died from the virus.
Right, 113. So yes, absolutely. And so, Dr. Kim, what I want your audience to think about is like, what makes someone bad?
Mm-hmm.
Like, where do we get that thinking?
Yeah.
And how much is that interconnected to race?
Right.
So when you talk about the feminization of poverty in the late 70s and 80s, where the idea that women and children were becoming poorer and poorer as there were fewer fathers in the household, and conservatives developed the trope of the welfare queen, right?
Yes.
right? And so you connect, that's taking advantage. Now, how can a poor person take advantage of resources? Like, you're poor. Like you need all the resources you can get. Yeah. And so what we did was we laid upon the feminization of poverty, this name calling of the welfare queen, and added, and then you connect blackness, which has already been categorized as bad, evil, wicked, dark, right, demonic, ignorant, lazy, and then you smash all those things together, right? And so now anyone who commits a crime, we don't even know what the charges are yet. Just having contact with the criminal justice system makes them bad. Yeah, right. So there are all these labels. Having contact with poverty was connected to being bad. Yes, correct. Yeah. And so we need people to unpack their own thinking about, like, what makes a person bad. Yeah. You know, if I can speak for a minute as an ordained Baptist minister, holiness is not so much about what we do wrong. Yes. Right? Holiness, you know, and put it this way, holiness is not so much about, if you read the book of Leviticus, holiness is not so much about what we do to remain holy. Okay. But it is just as much about what we do to make things right when we've made a mistake. That makes you holy as well. Yeah. It makes you a holy person to repair the harm you've done. Yes. And so we short circuit that process by labeling people as bad, throwing them into prison. As I said earlier, we never get to learn our lesson. Yeah. And we and the victims, meanwhile, suffer. Yes. Right. Yeah. And so we've got and nothing's ever, like you say, you never get to learn your lesson, so nothing's ever fixed. How are we going to move forward? How are we going to develop? You don't reform cancer, Doc. You don't reform cancer. You want to kill it. That's so right. Prison reform, no thank you. It has to be abolished and replaced for those, that 3% that is so dangerous to themselves and other people. Yeah. A locked mental health facility. Right. Because, a locked mental health facility. Go ahead. Well, so I want to ask you then, if we're talking about removing all of these, because I've got some pretty rogue friends on like my social media pages that comment on things like this and would just be blowing at this, like angry at this conversation. But I think, like, if we're talking about mental health and those things being issues for how we can, or the real problem here, then how do you go from having all of these prisons, right, both private and public prisons, to just removing them or changing them into mental health facilities or rehab facilities, if you will? How does that happen? I mean, you turn the spigot off, and the spigot is in the streets. It's the arrests. Okay. If you stop arrests, who's going to prison? Right? So, if the only people you take on the police, then in what way when you say defund the police, or you don't say that at all? No, I don't say that. I would say reimagine public safety. And in reimagining public safety, we would reallocate resources to guardianship as opposed to policing, because policing requires a hunt. Right. Some people know and have studied this better than I have, how the police force was intended to capture runaway slaves. Yes. Right. And in many ways, we are still treated like runaway slaves in this country. Right. You know, get in place, get back in line. Yeah. You know, don't get too high. Don't speak out too much. You know, the slightest error, we are penalized more than others. So, and so you cut it off at this, you turn the spigot off, and the spigot is the way that we police. Okay. So we need to reimagine public safety by having guardians in the community. We can retrain the police, the current police who are willing to be retrained. Yeah. And the others, we can help them find other careers if they don't want to be guardians. All right. There are whole troops of men and women who've been incarcerated. They'd be great guardians.
Yes, yes, yes. I think that's the beginning of a conversation that we could continue for a long time, Doc. But I don't want to lose my viewers, my subscribers. We've really talked some good things today, and I hate to let you go because I really want to talk more. But we've been talking for a longer period than you think.
Thank you. It's been a joy to be with you and to see you. I miss you, lady. I miss you
too so much. I want to ask you though, too, Doc, before I let you go, because I'm going to call you. I'm going to call you so that we can do some talking on the side about some things. But I want to ask you though. You've got Exodus Foundation going on right now, obviously, but I want to know what's happening over there. Are you looking for any donation? What do you have going on as far as how can we help you?
Oh, well, thank you. Yes, your audience can help. So this is actually Black Philanthropy Time month.
Okay.
So our goal is 600 donors giving $10 a month for 3 years.
Yes.
That's a $120 donation a year. But if you do it monthly, it really helps our board manage the funds and the cash flow. So if you could set up an automatic pay, and online bill pay, or go to exodusfoundation.org on Facebook. We have all sorts of links up there that allow you to link up and make that gift.
Awesome. That's simple as it is. That's easy. And it's not asking for a whole lot too. So that's good. Right. That's good, Doc. I like that. I'll see how we can make that happen here at What's to Say with Dr. Kymrae. Do you have any final thoughts that we maybe didn't touch on that, you kind of had on your heart that you wanted to talk about today? Anything or shout outs?
I need everyone that hears this to understand that we've been choked out for centuries in this country. Mm-hmm. That we haven't been able to breathe properly as people of color for a long time. Mm-hmm. And what we see manifesting in terms of police brutality and people literally being choked out is a manifestation of what our lives are like as people of color. And I need people to get angry. I need you to be pissed off about it. I need you to have some righteous indignation. I want you to understand that the plot was genocidal from the very beginning. And we all need to repent for drinking the Kool-Aid in the 80s and signing up for tough on crime legislation and turn the whole thing around. That's it.
Drop the mic. I like it, Doc. I like it a lot. And I really appreciate this conversation. I more so appreciate your work that you're doing out here in these streets. It's you're not popular enough. You're not famous enough. Everyone should know you. You should be on Oprah's own masterclass. You should be talking about these things. And Van Jones, should have you on his show. I mean, you should be more popular than. I know you've been on Roland Martin's show and a couple of other TV shows you've been on. So you've been around and out there, but you're just not famous enough. This is big stuff.
You are very kind to say that. And it's not about me, Dr. Kim. It's about the message, right? Yeah. I want our message to get out there.
Yeah.
And I have to mention this name while I've got you, Robert Greene. Okay. He's a brother that we're trying to get out of prison in Virginia right now.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have a way of posting about it, but your Virginia listeners.
Okay. Robert Greene in Virginia.
We're going to need some help. Free Robert Greene. Damn it.
All right. Hashtag free Robert Greene. I'm going to have to read about his story but we'll talk more about some things, offline too. I want to talk to you about some things. So we're going to send you the donations and definitely check you out and what you got going on over there at exodusfoundation.org.
That's right.
We just thank you so much. And if our subscribers were not woke, then maybe they're on their way to being woke now. Maybe this reached one person. And if it did that, I'm very proud and very excited for their new journey in their next part of their life. Thank you.
Love.
Just love. Yes. So I appreciate you so much, Doc. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch with you real soon. Peace out.
All right, sis.